Hello and welcome to Diaspora TV. My name is Ambassador John. Wow, how do you know that you're in a toxic relationships? Now, today we are honored to have our team that takes us through these toxic relationships. We have a person that was here last week. We have Rose Mbai, who is a psychologist and a counselor. We have Samuel Senju, who, as you may know, is a poet, he's a musician, and he can be able also to speak very good things when it comes to motivation speaking. He can do spoken word. There's lots of things that he can do. Now, today we're also honored to have someone new in our talk show today. She is a person that is a certified trainer and a coach. She is passionate about helping individuals flourish and redefine their lives and craft their careers path with an early interest in teaching and a deeply felt connection to continuous personal growth. And she spends a majority of her time developing self-empowerment programs and resources and facilitating training on the same. She has in the recent past co-authored a Christian life skills curriculum for primary school standard 1 to 6 in Kenya, and is currently co-designing a Christian life skills curriculum for secondary schools and the brigade movement in Kenya. She holds a master's in business administration, human resources management, and a bachelor's degree in education. She has been engaged in skills training and resources development for various non-governmental organizations, corporate firms, and ministry-based organizations. Wow, what a CV there. And a person that will be very helpful for our show today. Now, keep in mind that it takes two individuals to have a toxic relationships, meaning our own words and actions matter as well. Now, I would like us to have our new guest to start by introduction by just letting us know what does it mean, or what exactly is a toxic relationship, and how do you know if you are in one? Take it away, Jackie.
Thank you, John. I would like to say, like the word suggests, toxic. When I think of something toxic, it means that there's a level of poison on something that is not pleasant in it. And so when we think about toxic relationship, we are thinking of the connections that we have, like you have said, two or more people that don't seem to be adding value. And so when we think of toxicity, we are thinking of relationships, toxic relationships, as relationships that will have the tendency to belittle another, or will have the tendency to actually drain another. So you find in any kind of a toxic relationship, there's one person or both persons whereby you're draining instead of even refilling our life bucket. And so let's keep thinking, as we keep thinking about toxicity, it's always good to keep asking the question of what value is this relationship? Is it really adding or is it subtracting the esteem, the person that I am supposed to be and the person that I am supposed to become?
Well, thank you so much, Jackie, for that. I would like each and every one of our panelists today to just have a little bit of definition about how they understand what toxicity is. So I'll go to Senju. Can you please take us through as well?
Thank you, John. So when we talk about toxicity, the word that comes to my mind is poison. And now when you talk about, this toxicity in a relationship, this is where it is one-sided, whereby we have one person who is taking advantage of the other, and the other person ends up being frustrated, disappointment, and even desperate and in despair and hurt and even depressed. So it's about a healthy relationship. So the toxicity in this kind of a relationship is the one that is dangerous, it's the one that is unhealthy, and that's what we are here to talk about, and how we can help someone out there to maybe get out of this toxicity, or know how to identify some of these and find the solutions to it.
Thank you so much, Senju. Can you take us through, Rose?
Well, I won't repeat what my colleague said, but I want to add something. when you talk about toxic relationship, we are looking at someone who brings you down more than up. A relationship should make you better every day. If today you are better than yesterday, then that is a healthy relationship. But if today you are worse than yesterday and you tomorrow be better than today, that relationship is toxic. So someone who works very hard to bring you down, and actually there's usually a feeling of dependent. The victim always feels like, I need this person. Despite of the treat, despite the fact you know very well that I'm not progressing this person, there's a feeling of desperation and feeling I cannot live and survive without this person. So someone is bringing you down and you feel I need you tomorrow, I need you today, I cannot live without. So that is being toxic in a toxic relationship.
Thank you so much, everyone, for your input. Well, that's a good definition of a toxic relationship. Now, there are so many types of toxic relationship, and I want us to start and begin with this person who we call a deprecator or a belittler, someone who is constantly belittling you, someone who is always making fun of you, someone who is essentially implying that pretty much everything that you say expresses your ideas, beliefs, or wants is silly or stupid. Do you identify with this kind of people? Can you take us through that, Jackie? This kind of a person is always a belittler.
I think you'll find that with this kind of people, they'll always, even in their action or in their speech, the things they do and the things they say to you, they always want to put you down. And in that case, that you'll find it affects, for example, your self-esteem if you're the person who is being put down. These are people who find it so difficult to celebrate you and to celebrate even your achievements, because somehow they start seeing you, they start having this feeling like they are in competition with you. And if by any chance you seem or appear like you're doing better than them, then they'll find all means to ensure that they bring you down so that you stay down. And so you will find in such relationships, the person who is being belittled, sometimes they'll even start doubting themselves. Those will be some of the effects. They'll start feeling like they are not good enough. Yet all this is because it is coming from someone else. It's not because they don't have the potential. It's because somebody is actually poisoning or becoming toxic towards their desire and their ambition to keep growing themselves.
Thank you, Jackie. Now, that is a very good explanation of this person who belittled, because this type of a toxic individual will often tell you that you're really lucky to have them as a partner, and that no other man or woman would really want you, and they try to show that they are basically above everything else, Now, Sanju, we have the one that is called the bad temper, toxic partner. These are people who get so angry or loses their temper quite easily, and they often won't interact within a meaningful way for days. You can once they have their temper, they can go mute for days, and you may end up having to have to be there's a term we normally use, that you are married single. So you end up to be married single for quite some time because this person went mute. Can you take us through this kind of a person, Sanju?
I love that thing you said, being married single, and it's true. It's really true that there are people who are that toxic. They would end up being so angry, they lose their temper, and even as we think about the Bible and some of the things that we can talk about, like the fruit of the Spirit, we see that self-control is a fruit of the Spirit. And if people are really into, for those who know God and they follow Jesus, then if one has that spirit, one has that fruit of self-control, then of course things like anger and losing control will not be part of their life. So it's really unfortunate that some people in relationship end up losing control and end up, doing things that they come to regret. They might say things because even the Bible says you can be angry, but don't sleep, don't let the sun go down when you're still angry. So being angry is a negative feeling that we have sometimes, but now going to the next step of, making someone feel little about themselves, saying bad things that you can't regret about what you say, that's now the bad thing. So then I think it's bad that, some people end up being too angry towards the point where they do things, they say things, they throw stuff, they can even become so abusive, even physically, because of that anger that they have in their heart. So that's one element in a toxic relationship that people should recognize and maybe find a way to deal with it.
Wow, thank you, Sanju. This kind of individuals often have an unpredictable and hair-trigger temper, and like you rightly said there, they will end up even having to abuse you because of their temper. Now, we have the one we call the guilt inducer. This is the person who plays victim. The individuals, this could happen to not only people who are in committed marriages or committed relationships, it could happen also between friends, parents, and even in their adult children, And controlling this relationship as well in committed relationships is exercised by inducing guilt in the victim. Now, Rose, I think you have seen this kind of people. There are very many in the community. Can you take us through this?
Yes, they are there. Thank you, John. I like what you said. As we address this topic, I want people to know that we are not only talking about a married couple. Toxic relationship is a relationship between everybody, at workplace, in church, in the house. It's just that it manifests better in a relationship, in a family setup, especially spousal, because that is a person that can really step on your toes very well. The rest people can really pretend. I like what you talk about guilt inducer. In a marriage and family therapy, we call them the blamer. Blamer is they always point at you. You are the reason as to why I got late. You are the reason behind my failure. You are the reason behind you. And that one makes someone feel very guilty, the spouse. They act the best. I like what you said. By the way, when it comes to this kind of category of people, they are the best in both. They are always the best. I mean, you are the problem. So if the victim, and then from there they play victim, as into them, were it not for 1, 2, 3, I wouldn't be the person I am today. And by the way, when they blame, they only take all the negative things that happens to their lives, they put blame on you. So you as a spouse, you always feel guilty. Why? I'm the reason behind my husband's progress. I'm the reason behind the company progressing because I'm not performing in a good way. I am the reason behind the failure around. So if you're not careful, you always carry the guilt because they are the victims. So they are very smart, and by the way, most of them are very innocent. They look very innocent. I don't know why this toxicity and innocence, they are twin sisters. There's a very high chances of a toxic person, but they will look at you and then they are very, very smart. A toxic person will be so toxic to you and an angel to someone else. So that everyone will know the problem with that lady is that she doesn't know how to live with this man. The problem of that man is that she don't know how to live this lady. Otherwise, this is the best woman I've ever met. So by the way, never blame people because of the looks. So that is what happens. They blame everything on you, and so the receiver is always the guilt holder. I'm guilty that my husband failed. I'm guilty that the company failed because of my performance. So that is how they act. They always blame. And we say, when there is a blamer, there's someone we call a placator who receives and says, sorry, I am the one behind. And someone is pointing at you and the other one says, sorry, I'm the reason behind. So let us be very careful on this. Watch out.
Wow, thank you so much, Rose. A guilt inducer not only controls by inducing guilt, but by temporarily removing guilt. If you end up doing what he or she wants you to do, you know. That is quite interesting of a guilt inducer. So they will be controlling you all the time. You'll be at their disposal. So these are some of the people that we need to define and help people to understand this kind of people, and maybe they are aware and they don't know. Now, the other one which I want you, Rose, not Rose, but Jackie, to think about is the overreactor or the deflector. The overreactor or the deflector. If I can give a synopsis of this, you know, if you ever have tried to tell a significant other that you're unhappy, hurt, or angry about something they did, and somehow find yourself taking care of their unhappiness, hurt, or anger, you are dealing with an overreactor or a deflector. I don't know whether that makes sense. Jackie, if you can take us through there, and yeah, such kind of a person, an overreactor.
When you talk about overreactor, I'm thinking in terms of situations whereby you find you're almost always the solution provider because of the way these people have reacted, or the way this person, for example, within a relationship, the way you come up, and it is always to their overreacting, or they never even give you that opportunity, because the reaction is an overwhelming kind of reaction that you do not expect. So, for example, if you find that they have done wrong, they'll take actions that when you look at it, you're like, no, you're blowing it up, just like the name mentions. So they blow up the situation to an extent that we would say they make a mountain out of a molehill, and so you're not even able to sort out any issue. And that is how mostly they will manifest themselves. So every time you bring out something, they will blow it up, and when it's blown up, then it gets out of proportion, and you can't have a conclusive conversation regarding that issue. So you can never even be able to resolve the problem. And that means the person who is receiving, or at the receiving end, again, maybe becomes now the person to help solve the problem, because she's the one or he's the one who is recognizing this overreactive behavior.
Well, thank you so much, Jackie. We cannot belabor on that. You've really taken away very well. Now, Sanju, I want you to think about the over-dependent partner. As odd as it may seem, you know, one method of toxic control is for your partner to be so passive that you have to make most of their decisions, you know. And especially here in the developed countries, I've seen that quite a lot, where some people are very passive and the one partner ends up making almost all the decisions. So can you take us through the over-dependent partner, that one that will not help at all?
Yeah, so when we talk about this over-dependent person, this is the person who we have these two people. One of them, for example, depends on the other for their future, especially things to do with financial breakthrough. So this person depends on the other person because the other person is providing for them that financial breakthrough. So that's toxic, because this person who is providing might end up abusing this other person, you know, with regards to things like those we are talking about, be angry at them. They might abuse them physically, psychologically, emotionally. And then this other person who is being dependent on the other person is just there waiting, and they don't know how to get away from this kind of relationship, because, you know, there's something that is benefiting from the other person. So I think that is very toxic, because this kind of over-dependency will lead to this, you know, unhealthy relationship, which is dangerous. One is benefiting, you know, from the other, and the other one is just there, not sure how to get away from this relationship, and they just remain there, you know, and they keep on, you know, being, you know, in that relationship that is toxic, which is not good.
Thank you, Sanju, for that. Now, you know, passivity can actually be an extremely powerful means of control. If you're involved in a relationship with a passive controller, you are likely to experience constant anxiety and or fatigue. And I think you've seen some relationships or some marriages where one person ends up even getting into depression, anxiety, because their partner either is not contributing, either is not helping in any way, and one partner is overburdened. And that overburdening of one partner in a relationship, or even, like we said before, it doesn't even apply. This type of toxicity is not only for people who are in a relationship or married. It can be friends. You can have a friend who is over-dependent, who is you end up sorting them. I don't know whether other panelists like Rose, you have anything else to add on that?
Oh yes, passivity can be one of the worst things ever. Because, like we said, it's about relationships. We'll have at any given time, we'll have a thing that will need to be discussed over. Talk about couple, we have children to talk about. We have responsibilities, we have things, everything. And so many things that need to be discussed over. Imagine having a partner that doesn't want to talk about it. What will happen to the other person? It is true, this is very rampant. I don't know what is happening in this world, but I know by the end of these shows we'll have talked, and at least we'll be in a position to get to know what is happening. Because passivity in a relationship cannot work at all. Talk about people who are dating. You need to talk about your future. Talk about workplace. We need to discuss about something. We must have something that we are discussing at any given time. You know, and I like when I mention we are dating, I like the way Sanju is reacting, because it is true. I want to know more about you, yet you cannot tell me who you are. I just need what happens. Passivity brings a lot of tension in that if you cannot tell me more about you, how do I trust you? I'll start filling in the blank space. The same thing happens in families. If you don't tell me what you're going through, the challenges you're going through as my partner, what will happen? I'll start filling in the blank spaces, and then tension will come in, and then there will be abuse. So I just have that to add. And this is it can be very, like what you said, it can be have a lot of anxiety in relationships. And this one is one of the recipe for disaster in relationships.
Thank you, Rose. You know, there is the Journal of Neuroscience has reported that the prefrontal cortex allows us to be flexible in our decision making while logically weighing the consequences of one decision over another. And anxiety disengages brain cells and may play a role in your partner's insistence that you have all the power and therefore all the risk in a potential perceived mistake, you know. Well, that takes us to the independent or non-dependable partner, toxic controller. This is an individual who frequently disguises his or her toxic controlling behavior as simply asserting his or her independence. Like, for example, I'm not going to let anyone control me, as is their motto, you know. I don't know that we can relate to this, and you, Rose, as a psychologist, I don't know whether you have met this kind of people in your journeys.
Now, this one, hey, they're the ones that they will come and tell you. You know, it is all, I like, they're all relating, but I'm imagining this person who feels, I am powerhouse. I am the know-it-all, I am the beginning and the end. And so, whatever you come and tell me, it doesn't matter. Actually, I am just alone, I am self-contained. So what does that mean to the partner? All your ideas are so down to earth. I mean, all your ideas are nothing to me. After all, you're telling me about an investment? No, I'm thinking about a multi-billionaire, whatever. You know, someone that always, and by the way, you'll be very surprised. Maybe your idea is the first thing that ever he or she ever had about it. But because they want to prove a point, they will disregard you. And by the way, they will behave as if they don't want anything from you. Later, actually, I remember there's one person that we were discussing with, and the lady had a very good idea. The way someone comes and tells you, this is a business idea I have, and I know this one can work. And the guy says, no, do you think this is, you need to think better. This is not the right time to do this. This is actually not a viable business idea. I mean, I'm thinking about millions and you're telling me about this one. No, look at it now. Remember the belittler and whatever, everything came in. Only to realize later, this lady realized later, after they parted ways, this guy implemented everything that the wife used to suggest to him. What I meant is, when they come in, they cannot imagine, they don't want to imagine, or rather they don't want anyone to feel like at any given time that your ideas can be valid. But the reality is, your ideas are valid, but they cannot, they want to feel independent. They are a suitcase, they are self-contained, which is not okay in a relationship. We must accept in a relationship there is give and there is take. There's a time to listen, there is a time to talk. But unlike this one, it's a self-contained kind of a relationship. But the reality is, they want your idea so that they implement. And once they implement it, it becomes theirs. You don't mention like your partner suggested what? No. I am the one who started this business. I am the one who actually went literally and got this client. Fine. But remember, the idea was from your partner. That's how they manifest.
Thank you so much, Rose. You know, the anxiety you feel in such a relationship often does eat away at your emotional and physical health. Is there anything you want to add on that, Jackie? About this person who is very independent, tries to show that they are non-dependable. For example, they will say they'll take the kids to a movie on a Saturday, but they actually even don't. Something always comes up with them. Do you have anything you can add there, Jackie?
I wanted to say that you'll find that in these toxic relationships, they're saying their powerhouse, you become over-controlling. Over-controlling will still be the same people who, like, if you're a partner, they want to know where you are, what you're doing, because they believe only their way is right. And so you suffocate the other person, if that's the word I would use. You tend to suffocate the other person. And because even again, when it comes to idea sharing, you're feeling your ideas are the best. So you want to take control even in making decisions. And again, yes, some of these decisions are things that the other party had the idea, but you picked it up. So you find that you continue to do the belittling, you continue to bring the other person down and making yourself feel like you're the one on top of the world, simply because, again, you cannot celebrate the potential that your partner has. And you keep imagining that you're entitled. So there's also a feeling of entitlement that comes up and plays very key in such kind of a relationship.
Thank you, Jackie. Now let's go to the next person, who is the user. Now, users, especially at the beginning of a relationship, often seem to be very nice, courteous, and pleasant individuals. But what defines a toxic relationship with a user is its one-way nature and the fact that you end up never having done enough for them. Sometimes another way that they can be defined is they will occasionally do some small thing for you, usually something that doesn't inconvenience or cost them too much. Be warned, because they do not interpret this like they are giving you a gift. They have given you an obligation. Now, Sanju, do you want to tell us whether you have seen this kind of people who you'll never do enough for them?
Yeah, of course, I have, and it's really unfortunate that we have such people. And when even we look at the Garden of Eden in Genesis 3, after the fall of humanity, that is Adam and Eve, it makes now every human being to like have that license to sin, which means that most of these issues that we find in our lives, all these sin and depravity and all that, including now toxicity in relationships, and as we are saying, it's not just about, you know, in a marriage, can be in a business, can be your partner in business, can be in a school, can be in a church. So all these issues relating even to that kind of a thing, where you have this person who you do a lot to them, but they don't see it coming like that. It comes from that pride, that selfishness, that me personally, that There are people who just want, things done for themselves, and they don't want to take, into consideration about what others will feel, the feeling of the other person, how their emotions will feel. They don't want to take that in consideration. So it's all about themselves. It's all about themselves and what they can gain, what they can benefit from that kind of a relationship, which is really toxic. So if we can go back into that aspect of, oneself, thinking about the other person, not being selfish and self-absorbed, and looking into the other person's well-being, then we might not have this issue. So yeah, I've seen these people, and yeah, they to a point where some of the things you do to them, you kind of do them like an obligation instead of doing them out of love. You do them out of, it's like you're forced to do them rather than doing it out of love because you're willing and because you love to do it. So yeah.
Wow, thank you, Sanji. Staying in a relationship with a user is like paying $1,000 for a candy bar. You really aren't getting much of your investment. Wow.
Right.
So to wrap it up on the types of these toxic users, we cannot exhaust. There are so many, but we're gonna talk about the possessive or the paranoid toxic controller. This is a type of a toxic individual. And I would actually say this kind of an individual is really bad news. Early in your relationship with them, you may actually appreciate their jealousy, particularly if it isn't too controlling. And most, but certainly not at all, possessive will imply that once the two of you are married or in a committed relationship, they will be fine. But don't believe it for the moment. These toxic individuals will become more and more suspicious and controlling as time goes on. They will check the odometer in your car to make sure you haven't gone somewhere you shouldn't. They will interrogate you if you have to say to stay later to work. They'll check your phone and stuff like that. Well, Jackie, have you met this kind of people?
Yeah, I think it's a common scenario, and you'll find that now when you have somebody who's possessive, you even realize that they'll keep, like you say, they check your phone. They want to know where you are, so they keep calling you. This is where we find people even keep track. They have connected like a tracker on your car to be able to check where you are at any given time. And your life seems, you will find they also have a kind of what they call an narcissistic kind of a behavior. So if you're a partner to one of them, you'll find, like I mentioned earlier, now this is where suffocation really comes in heavily, that they tend to suffocate you. If you're in an office, they'll keep calling even sometimes your colleagues to find out where are you, what are you doing. They will maybe sometimes drop they really want, but because they are feeling there's a level of insecurity that they feel, and so they want to actually possess you.
Thank you so much, Jackie. That is very true. And these are people that we have seen quite often. I don't know whether there's something you want to add on that, Rose.
I want to bring a point here and say it is very hard for you to identify that this person who is over possessive is not really, it's very hard for you to differentiate between love and over possessiveness, because it comes out very well as love at the beginning. I mean, imagine someone picking you from your place of work and dropping you home direct. Isn't that love? I mean, during the first days, you see, this is all love. Imagine someone telling you, I don't want to go to the market alone. I'd rather park and wait for you. At the back of the mind of this person, he's like, this person will have someone who will look at her, and admire her. Imagine someone who tells you, imagine I love you so much, my dear, I don't want you to go and work. Imagine just resign, I'll provide everything you need. And to you can confuse that with love. At the back of the mind of this person, I want to control you. I want to disconnect you from all your people, the people that can help you identify who I am. And by and by, you realize I am so suffocated. I don't have friends. I don't have liberty. I don't have money, so I can't even call my friends. I am in this place and this corner where I am helpless. By the time you know that, you're almost in depression, if not in depression. What am I saying? Let us know the difference between love and over possessiveness. or toxicity. It is very important because so many people are in this, but they are not aware. They just don't know this is toxic. They think, imagine we are so transparent with my husband or my wife, such that imagine he keeps on checking my phone and I don't have any issue because I am straight. Just ask yourself, do you check on his or her phone? No. Why should it be? The love is one way. No, that is not love. It is high time people get to know what is love, what is toxicity. Let's name it as it is.
Thank you so much, Rose. I want our viewers to keep in mind that the toxicity of all the individuals that we have discussed is just clearly a matter of degree. And like I said before, some of us don't even know they're toxic. You may have experienced some, if not all, of these behaviors that we have talked about. And hopefully, I hope, it's in a mild form. Occasionally in your relationship, you may find some of this. And, now the question that comes out of this, it begs the question, so why do people behave in toxic ways? And the other question is, why do others put up with such behavior? Sanju, if you can start by telling us first, why do people behave in toxic ways?
Yeah, I'll start by saying that people do that because of this fallen nature. What we call the human nature is what Paul talks about, the flesh in Romans and even in Ephesians. So he says that, there are things that this fallen human nature, will demonstrate, and that's one of them. So it's because of this fallen nature, we are humans, after the fall in Genesis 3, that all these bad things, all this bad stuff, all this pride and anger and selfishness, it arises because of this fallen nature. And it's until one surrenders their life to Jesus, it's only Jesus that can help us to get rid of this toxicity, help us in our relationship, make our relationship healthy. So the first thing I think in mind when I think about, why, I would say it's because of this fallen nature. And everybody, as Jackie said something about narcissism, it's whereby when someone is narcissistic, they have that tendency to be preoccupied with their own self, with their own image, with their own vanity and pride. And that's because of this fallen nature. And because of that, if one has not taken time to realize that, and now when talking about, the biblical aspect where one has not, come to the realization of Christ Jesus and Christ has started working on them, then they'll keep on being, toxic to their partners, to their families, to the church members, to their colleague at work, and it's like that.
Thank you for that. I'll go to you, Jackie. Why do you think people behave in toxic ways as well?
The things that contribute to that is life experiences. You find that if you've had a life experience that was not so pleasant, or even a trauma, or you went through so much pain and brokenness as you were growing up, and it was never dealt with, then you tend to react to it now. Unfortunately, sometimes when you get into a relationship, for example, when you get into marriage, you find that now you have found a person maybe to be releasing, like what they would say, you're releasing your stress, you're releasing your who you have become as a result of that brokenness to your partner. For example, if you're growing up, you were in a broken family. I mean, a family where by broken family, I mean maybe you came up and realized that your parents went through maybe a divorce or separation, or their relationship was also very, very toxic. The likelihood of you actually, when you become also married, being a toxic partner is very high, because you saw the role modeling, and sometimes you even think that is the right thing to do, so you tend to transfer it again to your partner as you become married.
Thank you so much for that. Now, Rose, I would like you to take us through, why do others put up with such behavior? And as a psychologist, I don't know whether there are people who have come to consult you because they have been in toxic relationships and they can't put up with it anymore. People who have been abused, stuff like that. Can you take us through that? Why do people put with such behavior and they actually don't walk away? They keep staying in the same toxic relationships?
Good question. I like that question. Remember we said this toxicity appears as a very nice package. Some, I can tell you for real, John, some don't even know right now they're in toxic relationship. They will convince you how they are loved. Loved because I can't go to work. I am provided everything. I'm so loved. I mean, how? So some are not aware. Some are still in the relationships because they are not aware. Lack of awareness. The other thing is because Jackie mentioned that, and I want to say from the psychological end, it is what that informs you as a person. How do I behave? If I grew up seeing my mother being battered, and she was told that a real woman should persevere everything. You grow up knowing a woman should keep quiet. Actually, in my mother tongue, it comes out very well. It says very well that a woman should keep quiet despite of anything and everything. You should not even talk about it. So what Jackie called modeling, we say behaviors are learned. And from psychological perspective, behaviors are learned by children before they become teenagers. So they grow up seeing their mother being mistreated, and they grow up seeing their father, the way their father handled the woman. So a young man will learn women are supposed to be treated in this way, in a bullying way. And women will learn to be submissive is you don't talk. You are abused them, but you don't talk. So what is so new if I get married to a place by a man who can abuse me, who can actually batter me? I mean, this is what I saw happening. They don't have any other version. So modeling is key. And that is why I am so passionate about family. Because on the other hand, when we talk about family system, a healthy system should have boundaries that are well put. There are three types of boundaries. One boundary, we call it rigid. Rigid, people stay like this. My affair, my life, keep off. No one is talking to the other. I go out, I come after 3 days, you don't know where I was and you shouldn't ask me. That is not healthy. There is some we call diffuse. Diffuse look like this. You get into each other's space anytime. You know, you can ask, go take your partner's phone and go to any place without any question. What do I mean? That is not healthy because you need some clear boundaries. And that is the third one, clear boundaries. This is where this one gets into. This is where this other gets into. That is what we are calling clear boundaries. So if I've grown up seeing all these boundaries at work, then I will learn to respect each other's space. I will learn to know, to this point, I don't do this. To this point, I do this. But if I grew up seeing all these fights and exchange of words, that is how I pick. We say retention. Children see and they keep it. When the time comes, now they can take what they retained and they start using it. And that is why every forum, I always talk to parents. Parent, right now, we are talking about toxic relationship. Who are you modeling? Do you know you have children that are looking at you? What are they learning from you as a parent? How do you treat your spouse? Do you treat them with respect? Do you treat them as equals? Do you treat them as partners? I mean, the way you're treating your spouse. Would you want your daughter to be treated the same way? Will you complain when your son-in-law in future comes and tells you, this is what this man is treating me? And a woman as well. The way you're treating that man, would you want one day, your son to come and say, this is what this man is treating me? Fine, today you are a young man, tomorrow you become someone's in-law. Do what exactly you want your children to model. You don't tell them a lot. We say children have a very big eyes and use a very small mouth. Don't talk a lot. Let them see what you want to see in them. Thank you, John.
Thank you so much. That was a very, very good explanation. And I'm so grateful that each and every one of you was able to contribute in a great way tonight. Well, this topic will continue. The conversation continues on Diaspora TV. And we shall meet here again next week when we continue to dig deeper in toxic relationships. Until then, it's bye-bye from us. Bye-bye.